Tell me about growing up in Virginia.
Well, I grew up in a great hometown with a great family. It's not dissimilar to Anderson, really. It's a smaller town. We had a university. Radford was Radford College, became Radford University. In the New River Valley mountains, played a lot of sports. We had a farm as well growing up, so I was out putting up hay and driving tractors at a young age, and just a wonderful childhood. I graduated undergrad at Radford with a medical technology certificate from Duke University, and it worked very well. I ended up staying at Duke. I worked for a couple years there in the laboratories, learned a lot about multiple things, including helping me to get more precise in what I wanted to do, and ultimately made a decision to go to graduate school. I'd thought before I probably would go to medical school or dental school, and I really found that I liked the management and leadership aspect of healthcare more so than the clinical one, and that's where my bent was, so to speak. So I went to graduate school. I was fortunate to be accepted there to the Fuqua School of Business and did my master's in health administration at Duke. It's a broad education in the facets of managing multiple aspects of healthcare, but at that time primarily focused on the delivery system. So things like operations management, strategic planning, accounting and financial management, team building, leadership development, things like that, quality improvement. But the reality of it is it's only a foundation. It's only a foundation. Now, it was interesting at Duke, and it was very intimidating that they only accepted students into the program at Fuqua that had 2 years of work experience. So the first year, it's basically an MBA. You're on the same classes. Well, I'm a science major. I'm taking accounting with guys and gals that are CPAs. Finance class with folks that have worked on Wall Street the last 2 years. It was very intimidating, but yet it was a great learning environment. I learned as much from my classmates as I did from my professors. But I went on from there, and kind of to get back to your question, to really develop myself as a healthcare leader. I did a fellowship after that up at Geisinger Health System in Pennsylvania. Call it the Mayo of the East. It was founded by the first resident of the Mayo brothers at Mayo Clinic, and a fully diversified healthcare system with experience in hospital operations, physician practice operations, HMO and insurance and outreach. And I was able to be there for almost 2 years in my fellowship, which was a real accelerant for my career. And that really prepared me then to get started in being a healthcare leader. I was in Norton for 7 years. It was a tremendous experience. It was probably a broader and a bigger leadership responsibility than I deserved to have at that point in my career. I was the youngest CEO in the state of Virginia for a long time.
Really?
And our hospital had a lot of challenges, We were fortunate to be successful in working through those challenges. At the end of about 7 years, Carol and I had been married for a little while. We had our first, she was pregnant with Jack, our first child. And we really knew, while we loved the people in the area, it was not where we wanted to start and grow our family. So I took a position with HCA in the Nashville market in Springfield, Tennessee, and we moved there, which is a suburb, the northern side of Nashville, still a relatively suburban/rural area, but near a big metropolitan area with Nashville. We left Nashville and took an opportunity with Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare in Memphis, kept moving westward, it seemed, and went to work there in the Methodist system as the CEO of one of the suburban hospitals. Ultimately, I was with Methodist for 17 years, and I had 3 different positions, culminating in my last position being Executive Vice President for the community group, which I describe it as I was the Chief Operating Officer for all of our community assets, our 5 community hospitals, suburban hub hospital, physician practices, outpatient offerings. Memphis is a big southern town. Unlike living in Nashville, which we love Nashville too, Nashville is, in my opinion, more cosmopolitan. There's a lot more people that have moved into Nashville that have diluted, and I think I say this negatively, it's diluted the southernness of Nashville. Memphis, not the case. Memphis is a big southern town. The people are tremendous. There's a lot of characters in Memphis. There's a lot of history, both with the music industry, with food, history in general, the cotton industry, and Memphis being a port city on the Mississippi. We really enjoyed our time there. I think you could eat at a different barbecue restaurant every day for a year and not duplicate in Memphis, and everyone has their favorites. It's interesting. I'd gotten to a point career-wise, and we wanted to live in Memphis. We were very happy there, but career-wise, I wanted to be in a place I could grow. But then once our children got to a spot that we wouldn't be moving them for high school age, we could really look for an opportunity that is exciting to Carol and I from a standpoint of the career aspect as well as a place we would want to live. So we started looking around, and I was actually looking at another opportunity down in Georgia, and the recruiter said, you know, we're going to have this thing come up in Anderson, and let me have somebody call you and talk with you about it. I knew of Anderson Medical Center. Mr. Oglesby actually spoke to our graduate school class, and it was like 1990, and I met him. I believe we had lunch or breakfast together. I can't remember which. Wow. And so I was generally aware, but I'd lost touch for a long time. The more I learned about AnMed, and the more we learned about the opportunity to live in this area, it was just a perfect fit. I really believe it's a place that I could bring my background and experience and combine that with the strength in this organization, the exciting things growth-wise going on in our region, and it would be a wonderful match. And I tell you, 2 months into it, we just feel so blessed to be here.
And it's unusual how this has all worked out, because Kurt Oglesby, when he was CEO, brought along John Miller, and John Miller, when he was CEO, brought along Bill Manson, and now the board has decided to go to Memphis, Tennessee to hire you.
Well, we had a lot of conversation around that. I did with the board, and I really appreciate their honesty to even say that, you know, they kind of, that had been by design, and if the design had continued on, they would have went the same way, but the opportunity wasn't there. Right. I would say, I don't know this for sure, but I would say we're probably one of one around the country that has had that type of CEO succession over half a century. What does that mean? How open to a new person will the organization be? And I was assured that there was a willingness and excitement, and I have experienced that now. I give a lot of credit to Bill Manson and the board and leadership team here that they prepared this organization for a new person. Not that I'm coming in and saying, okay, guys, we've been going right, now we're going to go 100% left. It's not that at all, but it's a genuine willingness and an excitement, not just a willingness, but an excitement to engage with me. And I tell folks, I'm respectful and grateful of the success that we've had at AnMed Health and what has been earned, but I'm excited about the potential that we have. That's why I'm here.
How do you feel as the CEO of the largest employer in Anderson County?
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. It's a responsibility that I believe historically our organization has taken very seriously. I've had conversations with many folks about how we invest, not just in our employees, but how we support other organizations. One is a big one, is United Way. Sure. It's a big deal. Being the biggest employer here, what do we do? How do we contribute to the community to help this community be better? That's a big responsibility. I think it's also a big opportunity for us, and I'm excited about that too.
When you and your wife first came here and you realized that Anderson was going to be your home for the next however many years, what were some of the things that jumped out to you and her about the quality of life and what we had to offer here?
One of the things that folks consistently told me, there's the greatest thing about living in Anderson is you're close to the coast, you're close to the mountains. And that's true, but I have since told the board committee that was the transition committee, because they've asked, it's a very comprehensive process. And in follow-up, they asked, well, is there anything that we could have done better, could have been more clear to you? And the answer that I give is around that answer. I think that while it's great, and we've taken advantage already that it's close to the coast, we love that, and close to the mountains, that's not the greatest thing. The best thing about living in Anderson is living in Anderson. We got a little bit of a feel of that during the recruitment process. We stayed a couple extra days through that process that we would not be structured in time, and Carol and I just went around, tried to get a sense of feel for what it would be like to live here as much as we could in 36 hours. We have really enjoyed the downtown area. We've taken advantage of a lot of the restaurants, the microbreweries. I think Anderson has a wonderful vibe that makes it a great place to live.
Looking back on 2020, you probably could not have picked a worse time to come to a hospital in South Carolina, considering everything that has transpired so far this year.
I would agree with you that it is a unique transition period. In a lot of ways. The circumstance that you described of having an internal succession for half a century, that's unique. The pandemic makes it unique as well. It's important for me as a leader that I connect with our stakeholders, with our employees, with our physicians, with people in the community. That's a challenge when you're a new person. And while folks may say that, well, this is a small organization, it's not a small organization. We have in excess of 3,000 employees. We have more than 500 physicians, plus the operations that support them. We have a lot of people. I've not met everyone yet, but I'm trying very hard and believe that it's important that we connect. COVID makes that challenging. Even when we can meet face-to-face behind a mask, it's hard. A huge percentage of communication is nonverbal. When you cover up most of someone's face, it's really hard to tell, are you connecting or not? That's a challenge. I would tell you though, the flip side and a bit of the silver line is, in my experience, when I look back at the teams that I've worked with that I am most proud of and I enjoy the most, we came together because we worked through challenging times. Smooth times don't necessarily accelerate the team coming together. Working through difficult times do. And while I wouldn't choose this, certainly wouldn't choose it, I think we are accelerating our growth, our evolution as a team, and my introduction as a leader. And I'm grateful for that. In addition to that though, we're going further to be able to really encourage folks to access health care. There's a danger to that as well. If people are afraid or concerned so they don't go seek health care, there's been quite a bit published over the last 3 months around folks that are really having problems due to the risk of not seeking appropriate health care. So we're pushing in that area to inform people as well. We're seeing some of that rebounding in our patient counts. As people are coming in, they're comfortable coming to their physician offices, and we're sharing why it's safe, what do we do to make sure it is safe for them to come here. But it is definitely a balance. Another area that is a challenge for us is the isolation aspect. I had a chance to participate in a drive-through thank you for our volunteer group. We have a very active volunteer group here, but they can't be in the hospital today. These folks, the isolation is taking a toll on them. You know, all of us exist because we have a purpose in life. And many of these folks, their central purpose is volunteering, which, how noble is that? I mean, it's wonderful. But when you take that away from them, which is unfortunately had to be done because of the safety aspect, it's really hurt. So now we're trying to be innovative and find ways we can get them reconnected because they're so important to our ability to fulfill our purpose.
I know you've only been here for, 2 months, but looking back on the decision to come to Anderson County, was it the right one?
Oh, man, I think so. I think so. Carol and I are so happy. I can't imagine being in a better place. I mean, that may sound like hyperbole, but I tell folks consistently just how much we're enjoying it. We're having a great time, and we don't have time for me to tell you so many different ways, but there's a lot of small ways. I mean, we went Friday night and we were in one of the local microbreweries, and we had a chance to meet some really interesting people. Then we went to a restaurant, had dinner, and it was just so pleasant to get to know people here. Little things like my drive from home is 5 minutes. My drive previously was 40 minutes. I tell folks I could put the lipstick on the pig on that story. I know how to, you could tell, well, I decompress on my way home, I make phone calls, I listen to a book on tape. But I also know if you ask me, so you like this 40-minute drive? No, I do not. I like 5 minutes a lot better. There are a lot of positives, and we feel very grateful to be here, and we look forward to getting to know more people in the Anderson and in the upstate community.
Well, it's been a delight to get to know our new CEO at AnMed Health, William Kenley. We welcome him and his wife and his family to the Anderson community, and we thank him for taking time out of a really busy schedule to sit down with us and chat. And as always, we want to thank each of you for taking time to tune in and invite you to be back with us next week, same time, for our next edition of Conversations with Paul Brown. Until then, take care, everybody.